Nobody is talking about this big, beautiful bill and the unattended consequences that's going to come from the signing of it. Now, some of these consequences is going to be higher rental prices and massive foreclosures.
If you pay property taxes or if you're a renter and they're built into your monthly payment, you may be paying more depending on where you live.
Yeah, in a new series called Highballed, our ABC-owned stations teamed up with ABC News and found racial inequalities in how different neighborhoods are taxed. The epicenter of that problem, New York City.
People are taxed differently based on where they live in the city. It's contributing to thousands of people being forced out of their own homes.
Really affect a lot of elderly people and those that are on Social Security and a fixed income.
91-year-old Gloria Gaynor. She lost her home of 25 years because of an unpaid tax bill totaling $3,500. For 70-year-old Benita Anderson, this Baltimore house became a safe haven. The cancer diagnosis in 2020 changed everything.
Back to that moment when you realized that you would be losing your home.
I sat there and I said, oh my God. I'm 70 years old and I'm homeless.
Now with Trump big beautiful bill, it is cutting back on funding, especially to states. Now with state funding, this helps a lot of cities and municipalities with their shortfall in their budget and their spending. Now there is already a persistent problem nobody is talking about that's been in operation even before Trump took office. And now with these budget cutbacks, this is going to exacerbate this problem.
Here's the house that advocates say is worth about $1 million, but because of a water bill in the hundreds of dollars, yeah, the homeowner could lose it all.
I don't know how he's taken away from me. I just see some guy come in the middle of the night and start to drill out lock and say, there's the new owner.
Fillmore Brown talks about how workers for a bank tried to take over the multi-family home, which had a mortgage he paid off years ago, and they tried to force him and his tenants out.
I don't have no idea about a bill.
One water bill got past him 6 years ago.
There's no connection of that bill to the other bills in the Department of Finance system. So the homeowner does not know that there's another bill out there. That's accumulating interest at 18% a day.
So when it ballooned to $5,000 unpaid without the homeowner's knowledge, the city put a lien on his home, which allowed a bank to take over.
Now, this is a huge problem going on across the country, and it's been going on, especially in cities like New York City and others. You have that these cities are incentivizing big corporations to gentrify certain areas by giving them tax breaks on the property tax when they come in, and then they build up this area, running out a lot of the existing people that live there and own there.
Kareem Hamilton was at risk of losing his family's American dream, the home his mother left him, one she worked her entire life to buy and pay off. But after losing his job, he fell behind on paying his property taxes, thousands of dollars behind. He's charged more each year than some families in similar homes. Kareem's yearly property taxes are $7,800 a year for his 2-unit home located in Brooklyn's East Flatbush neighborhood. But just a few miles west, we found a similar-sized home closer to the water that's paying $4,000 a year. That's more than $3,000 less than Kareem, even though the other home is worth twice as much.
New York City has the most confusing and unfair property tax system in the country.
Where he found the way homes in New York City are assessed negatively impacts communities of color the most. Properties in the city are valued using different methods. If you live in an area that's undergoing rapid growth and gentrification, there is a cap on how much you're taxed, so you're not paying big increases all at once. If you're living in an area with fewer home sales and development like Kareem, there is no cap on how much you're taxed.
And with them getting those tax breaks, normally when you revamp a property and the price of that property goes up, the tax assessment is supposed to charge them more. So they're actually driving this gentrification and incentivizing these corporations from running these people out of their homes and then raising the property taxes that's being passed on to the renters.
Commissioner Preston Niblack is in charge of collecting taxes based on laws that were passed decades ago.
That inequity is something that has often been decried, and it is one that we have some proposals that we have talked to Albany about to fix. We have no broad-based tax relief for low and moderate income homeowners. That's very common throughout the rest of the country.
Being the largest city in the country, why do you think that we don't have a program like that in place?
That's a good question, and it goes back back, to when the bill was first passed 40 some years ago.
Homeowners don't pay their taxes, they can be placed on the city's lien sale list. That's where foreclosure comes in, and homeowners could lose their properties if they don't make payments.
Now, this is a huge problem. Why New York City, out of all cities that's supposed to be for equality, would not have any mechanism in place where people can get tax relief, especially for the elderly. Most cities does give elderly people at a certain age, because they're no longer working, some kind of property tax discount in order for them to keep their home and to pass on generational wealth. A lot of this is by design, and this is why in certain cities you do not see a lot of Black home ownership because of these kind of mechanism. And New York City isn't the only city. Let's look at what's going on in Chicago.
So in 2017, the city of Chicago elected officials, the building department, unlawfully demolished my family's property.
Why did they say they demolished the property?
They said building violations. And it's crazy because my mother was fixing up its property at the bottom. It's 4 apartments at the top. And my mother was working on it. And how we found out that the building was unlawfully demolished was the electrician. He called, he said, "Hey, Miss Marsh, the building isn't here." And my mother called the city. They had no information. He's like, "No, they're not, they're not supposed to do that." So she went, down to City Hall. She spoke to the law department. They really couldn't give her any information. But one person in the law department told her to go get a police report. So she did go back and get a police report. And then they told her to file a claim. She filed the claim, and they said that the reason why we weren't paid out was because of building violations. And I said, well, where are the building violations? You have to go to buildings court. You have to go through a whole lot of stuff. You just can't knock down a building. And come to find out, my mother was fighting this by herself. At that time, Chicago, they have it where you can't get an attorney. You can't get in the Black communities. What they have done is they prey on Black seniors. They play on our communities and on buildings and properties that are already paid off.
So now there's development money in Chicago, and they're targeting the elderly to tear down their homes in order to take that property, and they're giving it to wealthy investors. So the people that actually build the city, these elderly people that help put in infrastructure with their tax dollars in their working years, are having their wealth stolen and their property stolen in the name of affordable housing.
To take anybody out the building, it was empty.
No, my godfather was living in there. They told him he had 10 minutes to get out, and he's 80.
Jesus Christ.
10 minutes to get out?
10 minutes to get out. And he's 80. Now, mind you, they don't have social media. And then at the time, the only attorneys that you can get for stuff like eminent domain or them stealing our properties is 2. It was 2, and it was Ed Vodoliak and Ed Burke. Now, they both have been convicted of stealing properties. They're were aldermen at the time. So Chicago has a thing that no matter what, you're not gonna get no justice. Chicago is one of the most corrupt cities on earth. And they put my mother in the hospital twice and fighting ever since.
And New York and Chicago have a big deflect in their tax dollars because during the migrant crisis, they funded a lot of this stuff. And now you're actually going to claw this money back from people who actually built the city. And this is really disgusting on how this is taking place against elderly people all over the country.
Now, mind you, while I'm fighting, I'm dealing with this immigration invasion that's coming in. I have other Black seniors that are coming down to city council as well because they're stealing their properties too. And it's only in certain areas. It's in TIF districts. It's tax increment financing. They're supposed to give you money in blighted areas, and predominantly Black areas. And they're supposed to help you build your community up. And what they're doing is they're taking the money, we call it a piggy bank, and they're giving it to predominantly white areas and now Hispanic areas. You can't get any help. You can't get any media. And they continue to do this. And they do it. They prey on seniors.
Yeah.
So, when people talk about Democrats, how the democracy and how they care, Chicago different.
And sad to say, it's not just Chicago. Let's go to the state of Michigan, where another senior was robbed of his property the same way. And the sad part is when they sell these properties, these people are not getting the money of the value of the home. They're being sold for the tax debt. And the rest of the money the investors are keeping and government officials is splitting up the bag.
Ellie lost his rental property over an $8.41 tax debt. His Southfield home was seized by Oakland County, put up for auction, and sold for more than $24,000. The county kept the profit.
When government takes an entire house as payment for a tiny debt, that's theft and it's unconstitutional. Really profitable for counties to foreclose and take all this extra money. We took this case just to protect the property rights of people across Michigan, and ultimately we want to end this kind of predatory tax collection process across the United States.
And this is going on in Baltimore. This poor woman actually got diagnosed and sick with cancer, and she lost her house that she owned for decades, and they took her home when she was set. And in these two cases I'm going to show you, both of these ladies paid the taxes, but the way they allocated made them still go in foreclosure and sell their homes to big investors.
The cancer diagnosis in 2020 changed everything. Nita was already struggling with mounting bills. Then it was a letter from the city of Baltimore letting her know she owed about $5,000 in back taxes from the last year.
That's what I paid. But they say they applied that to other tax years versus applying it to the year that it was for.
In 2022, the city of Baltimore put a lien on Bonita's house that was then auctioned off to the highest bidder.
7 years old and I'm homeless.
Bonita is one of many across the country who found herself highballed, facing disproportionately high property tax bills and ultimately losing her home at a government sale. Neighborhood as an example, where 97% of residents are black and the typical tax bill is around $3,800. A few miles away in the majority white Baltimore neighborhood across country, homeowners tend to pay lower taxes, but their homes are actually worth 50% more.
And as you can see in this case, that you have the black side of town, they're being charged much higher rates for property taxes than the other side of town that's predominantly white. And it's the same dynamic that's going on in New York City. And this poor elderly lady during the pandemic, she lost her home, and they should have been giving a pause, especially to seniors during the pandemic, for their property taxes.
1-year-old Gloria Gaynor. She lost her home of 25 years because of an unpaid tax bill totaling $3,500. During COVID, Gloria was unable to pay her tax bills in person, so she fell behind on her 2020 and 2021 property taxes.
She wouldn't go out. She didn't take any vaccine. She said she wasn't going out. She have a lot of underlying issues.
But when she ultimately made her payments in 2022, the tax office applied them to the current and previous years, leaving an outstanding balance for 2020. Now suffering from dementia, Gloria and her family fought in court to stop the sale, but they lost the lawsuit and their appeal. Real estate investor bought Gloria's home worth about $250,000 from the county for only $14,000, the cost of her overdue taxes plus interest and fees. Gloria had already paid off almost all of the mortgage, but she got nothing from the sale. And while this is legal, Gloria's attorneys argue it's unfair.
This is stripping generational wealth from the have-nots and allowing the haves to have it.
Now, as you can see, all of these cases are appalling. Now, one of the things that you need to do if you have a grandparent or a parent, make sure you help them and look after their tax bill, because at the end of the day, that's your inheritance and your children's inheritance. Another thing, working as a family to help even contribute to pay the property taxes with your parent, and also to help them in their older years to keep up with some of this information and to help them budget if all is possible, and possibly moving back in to help that parent and people paying rent at the same time, staying there so you can hold on to this generational wealth, and maybe looking into land ownership and going back to doing generational homesteads where you have multiple people living on acres of land, and this can reduce your tax liability than sometimes living in these city areas, if all is possible. Housing costs is going up more and more, so buying land that's undeveloped and maybe looking at alternative housing like tiny houses, even prefab houses or manufactured homes might be a cheaper option than losing your homes to property taxes and having the government to steal all your generational wealth. So hopefully this information was helpful. If you have any questions or comments, leave it in the comment section. But if you have more detailed questions for me, you can go to my website and all your questions go directly to my cell phone. I hope to see you guys in the next video. Stay tuned.